You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. This episode is sponsored by CallRail, and I'm excited to introduce our guest, Gyi Tsakalakis, who is president and co-founder of AttorneySync and one of CallRail's agency partners. Now, just to set the stage, AttorneySync grows law firms, and it's founded by lawyers. There's no long-term contracts. They've been doing what they've been doing for a while, and Gyi is a law graduate too, so that I think that's pretty cool too. Same as I'm a law graduate and I work with Lawyer Stories. So, and also with CallRail, you're never going to miss a call. So make sure you check them out. They do call tracking. It's very important to not miss a call from a client who really needs you. So, Gyi, I want to welcome you in today. Thanks for coming on.
Benny, thanks for having me. Great to be here. Can't wait to chat.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I have to say that I've seen your brand. So AttorneySync is one of the brands that I've seen out there since I started Lawyer Stories. Like I've seen it everywhere out there. So I know you do a lot of good works, and it was cool to find out that you work alongside CallRail, who's actually our new partner too. Shout out to CallRail. Like we're super psyched to be working with them. Really nice people over there. Highly recommend. So tell us a bit like where you're from in your early background. I want to hear the law school story, like why you went to law school, and then of course we're gonna kind of transition to like what you're doing now.
Sure. So as a really young person, I actually thought I was going to be a judge.
Okay.
My mom still kind of teases me about that because I didn't take that path. I reflect on it. We'll get to there. But I went to Michigan for undergrad. I started out as a computer science major. I'll date myself. This is like 1997, 98.
Oh, that's amazing. Those were good years, though. Like I was, I'm not too far off. Those were good years. All right, go ahead.
They were great years if you were a freshman at the University of Michigan and you were co-national champs, rushing the field and bumping chests with players.
Love it. Go blue.
Go blue. Anyway, but back then, like computer science, it was, gosh, when you think about it, is how much has changed. Back then, it was coding in a dark room. Java, not JavaScript, but Java, the programming language, had just come out, I think, my sophomore year. And I quickly realized that it really wasn't for me. Like I had a technical mind. Like I liked some of the things. I was building computers and stuff.
Wow.
But when I started to get a sense of like what coding was, at least back then, this is early internet days, not as, there's no social media. I think someone from Google actually came and talked to us, did a lecture. But this is, it's right around the birth of Google. And anyway, it wasn't for me. And so I pivoted to philosophy major, which I wouldn't trade in the world. I
Really?
love philosophy, but I wasn't really going to be, I'm not an academic. So for me, after I graduated, I took a year off, kind of reflected.
Yep.
And I played high school football, and my
Oh,
offensive.
that's awesome. What position?
Well, you're never going to believe this because I'm, 5'9" and $175, but I played guard and linebacker at my high school.
Okay.
And I'm proud to say I was captain of the team and all area. Again,
It's amazing.
You wouldn't believe this. You wouldn't believe it looking at me. But
Are you a Lions fan?
I am.
Yeah. Shout out to the Lions. Yeah, I'm a big Patriots fan, but that's.
Well, I'm a Tom Brady fan, so I'm a
That's
de
right,
facto
Michigan.
Patriots
Yeah.
fan. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But yeah, hey, go Lions! And we've definitely had our days of woe, so we're happy that they're doing so great. So
Unbelievable. By the way, like just a note on that, nobody's going to be happy to say this, but like the coach now was on the 0-16 Lions, so I really hope that they get one. You know what I mean? Like that was He's been through it. So, all right, back to the show.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I philosophy degree, took a year off. The point of me telling about my offensive coordinator is he's also a trial lawyer, and so I went
Wow.
and he was a mentor to me, and so I went and
Okay.
worked for him, and then I went to law school. I graduated Wayne State. Didn't have the grades to get into Michigan Law School,
Okay.
and worked there for about 2 years. And so in the early days, as a new lawyer, people are asking me like, "Hey, what should we be doing for marketing stuff? Should we get a website and this kind of stuff?" And so I'm
Interesting.
researching, talking to a lot of other lawyers. And it's funny. This is like 2006, 2007, and a lot of the lawyers I talked to, not just the lawyers at my firm, but a lot of lawyers I talked to, they're like, we're not really sure the internet's going to be this thing for lawyers. Now, the funny thing is, this 2006, 2007, the internet already was a thing for lawyers. Back then it was like Total Attorneys and Legal Fish and Legal Match and these other lead
Okay.
generation companies. And we actually started out doing lead generation. The short version of the lead gen thing was there was a whole thing about whether or not lawyers could pay per lead, whether that was fee sharing with non-lawyers. There was a big fight about it.
Interesting. Yep.
Long story short, they just, the courts came down, I think actually every jurisdiction said it was fine, but we pivoted to agency model. And so we founded AttorneySync in 2008. We founded another agency outside of legal in 2013.
So wait,
And
so
then,
Gyi, hold on. So did you
yep.
find that as you were like a practicing attorney? Did you find Attorney Sync?
The last 2007, I was like, it was in like brainstorm land. And then I officially left my law firm in 2008 to go full steam at AttorneySync. And so AttorneySync, it was just an idea in
Right.
2007.
Right.
Uh, and so, but I went to the lawyer, and the lawyers at my firm, I think, were shocked. They're like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've got this entrepreneurial itch, so I'm going to try something new." And my business partner had been working at a lead generation company for at-home services that another friend of ours had founded. And so I was kind of like, look, I was like, I think we can, there's an opportunity to do something here. A lot of the stuff that I was looking at I just didn't think it was that great. And like lawyers with my people. And so I was like, you know what, I think we can help some of these lawyers out with this stuff. And so that's kind of how we started it.
Did you like reach back in your pocket from, your early days at Michigan to be like, hey, like, I'm doing like computer coding and all this stuff. Like this is sort of like techie and I kind of like, it's kind of like reigniting this interest I once had.
Totally. I think early on, we were doing a lot of like web design and development work, and and for me, it's like, there's some coding. I mean, it's not the same thing as like the coding I was doing in college, but, I definitely got a personal and professional satisfaction out of getting back into like the tech space. And really the thing that I still think is amazing after doing this almost 20 years, like the fact that we can put stuff online and tweak the websites and build links and do the digital PR and do all
Right.
the nerdy things that we do from an SEO standpoint and get a law firm to show up in a Google search and it's generating business for this firm. Like you feel like you like cracked some code. And
Right.
this is why the SEO people, talk like that, is because it's amazing. You're getting all this free, quote unquote, free traffic from Google. And it was like solving a puzzle. So I think I definitely enjoyed that aspect of it, that
No,
gig.
that's amazing. So like what drew you to helping like other law firms grow? Like you saw some sort of an opportunity within a lot of law firms.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, lawyers were my people,
Yep.
and I just was like, I had a lot of relationships with lawyers, and even today, like a lot. I was looking at CallRail actually puts out some good research on legal specific, and so I'm prepping for this conversation. I was looking at some of it, but you don't have to be an internet marketing person to know that even today, a lot of law firm websites are pretty bad. And
Yeah.
so I was just like, we can improve this. And I wasn't alone because there was a proliferation of digital legal marketing companies over the last 20 years. It's like every day there's a new legal marketing company. And so I think people are onto this idea that lawyers, people use the internet and social media and various communication technologies to find and hire lawyers, and what lawyers present to them impacts their decision about whether they want to hire them or not. And so I think that was really for me why there's just such a huge opportunity in legal to be able to help lawyers improve their marketing.
Did you miss being a trial lawyer like when you came out and started doing it or
I People ask me that all the time, and there are some parts I still miss. I was big trial advocacy guy. Like I
Yeah.
loved being in court. I was probably a little bit too enamored with it. Maybe I watched a little too much Law and Order. That part I loved. Obviously I loved helping clients, but like, going through medical record. I mean, we did civil litigation, and we did a lot of plaintiff personal injury, and there were a lot of aspects I don't miss at all. And so it's funny though, because when I think back, it's like if I was just litigating, like maybe I still would be doing that. But I think when I reflect on it too, as much as I loved it, like man, I'm totally empathetic to why so many lawyers burn out, because
Yeah.
it is hard, it is emotional, it is draining. And so
Totally.
for the, and I have tons of respect for, some of my close friends and clients are trial lawyers, and super grateful for the work that they do. I think lawyers in general, we could, I'm going to get philosophical on you, but,
Yeah, please.
they lawyers serve such an important function in our society. I mean, they are the front lines of defense. I mean, I was talking to, I always say criminal lawyers, like the only real lawyers, because they're protect us from the government. But, all lawyers, they're helping people navigate sometimes the worst thing that's ever happened to a person in their
That's
life.
right.
And so,
That's right.
got a lot of love for lawyers. And, but anyway, to answer your question, like I miss some parts of it. I don't miss other parts of it. And, I get to scratch a little bit of that legal itch because, I quote unquote am general counsel for my businesses. Now I'm not in court, thank goodness.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I miss some aspects of it, but I'll tell you, I'm super grateful. Like one of my close friends is my business partner. My brother is my business partner.
Wow. Okay.
The relationships that I've built from these businesses, like it's hard to go back and think like what coulda, shoulda, woulda. But I enjoyed my brief time doing it, and it was great. I got to work with my mentor at his firm, so it was pretty cool. And it was a small firm, so I was baptism by fire. I mean, I was in I think 3 trials my first year. It was motion call, depositions. Like I was hitting it hard, and that aspect of it I loved.
So, do you think it helps, obviously, that like you're a lawyer going into legal marketing? I mean, and the only reason I say that is because there's so many marketers. I mean, there's marketers that aren't lawyers, and for me, like I think it helps me, like when I'm on a podcast with a lawyer talking about certain items, even though I'm not practicing right now. Like, I think if a lawyer came to you and was like, "Hey, like this is my issue. This is what I need to solve. I need like the website. I need to figure out SEO." Like, you might be able to get into like the mind of an attorney a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it definitely helps in terms of like I speak lawyers' language. A lot of marketing people speak in marketing gobbledygook. An
Right.
easy example is like, leads versus potential clients, prospective clients, stuff like that. But also like rules of professional conduct. Like most marketers, they have no clue about rules of professional conduct. And in fact, they get lawyers in trouble with that kind of stuff by
That's
doing
interesting. Yeah.
unethical marketing tactics all the time. But I'll tell you this, because people always it's funny because my team is always like we should be leaning into the for lawyers by lawyers. Like you're a lawyer, you founded a marketing agency, and I've always been like being a lawyer doesn't make me a good marketer. I mean, it's funny because then I tell lawyers all the time, like they're great marketers. Just think of what you do at trial. Like at trial, you're marketing your client, you're marketing your case to the jury. It's the same thing,
Right.
communicating the value of your case. But I don't love the just because I'm a lawyer, I'm going to be good at marketing a law firm. I do think there are some, I think there's some language things. I think there's some understanding about the ways the business works, like especially because we serve a lot of plaintiffs law firms, and so talking about like target cost per case and that kind of stuff, like it's second nature to me. Whereas a lot of other marketing people talk about like vanity metrics, like impressions and clicks, and I'm like, who cares? Like, give me
Yeah.
qualified consultations and clients.
Right. Interesting. Um, so tell us exactly like what Attorney Sync is and what you do, like how you serve attorneys.
Sure. So lawyers come to us with all sorts of different needs. When I really boil it down, like we're kind of like business consultants in the marketing context because, having done this for so long, we know that lawyers are going to pay us a fee. They're going to pay, maybe they have an ad spend, maybe they're going to make investments in some other digital assets, and they're going to spend X, and we got to give them X plus Y back, or they're going to be like, what the heck's going on? And really, in my view, you've got to be somewhere in the three to 10x return, because otherwise it's like go invest your money in an index fund if you're only getting,
Right.
5 to 10%
Yeah.
return. But so that's like a very like broad way that I describe what we do. I mean, we kind of do soup to nuts. We do website builds, we do media management, we'll run Google Ads campaigns, we run paid social campaigns, we do SEO. We help law firms on intake. That was another thing too that I think early on, and this is kind of where the CallRail stuff comes in too. Early on, and a lot of marketers still are like this. They're like, look, we're responsible for making the phone ring, but we're not helping you connect the dots back to actually signed retainers or cases. And the thing that I've learned is it doesn't really matter. Eventually, if you're not connecting it all the way back to money for the lawyers, they're going to find somebody who can.
Hmm.
And so, that's one of the reasons why we get involved in intake. And when we talk to lawyers, when we do our exploratory call, we're like, "How are you handling intake?" And lawyers, some lawyers still even today will tell me, "Well, I answer my phone, and if people can't get a hold of me, they'll leave me a voice message." And I'm like, "Don't waste your time in digital marketing, because they're going to be on to the next one. Every 6 months, there's a whole new
Right.
crop of lawyers." And with some exceptions, like there for sure there are exceptions out there where like you're the only person in town who does the thing. Good for you. That's great. That's great marketing in and of itself. But that represents a very small sliver. Whether it's referrals or whether it's paid ads, like people want to have a great experience when they contact you, and voicemail is not that experience.
How does CallRail help with that? Like, I know they track the calls, and give us an example, and then we're going to go back to talking about AttorneySync.
Sure. So the initial reason, and CallRail has really come a long way too, over the years that we've worked with them as well. But the initial impetus for us signing up with CallRail way back in the day was call tracking. So and there's two big contexts that really helped us in. So we're an agency, and so we want to be able to demonstrate like, hey, I'll just use one specific channel. So like we're going to do some work in local SEO. We're going to get your firm to show up in the little map pack and organic results. And so having a dedicated call tracking number from CallRail in there allows us to say that people that called this number, they came from that Google business profile. They also have this thing called dynamic number insertion, which basically allows you to, when someone lands on your website, it connects the call data to the source information. So it'll be like this call, the person who landed on your website, they came from Google, they came from Facebook, they came from whatever the
Wow.
campaign that you've got going on. So you can be like, oh, we can actually do like return on ad spend analysis from your website via calls. And so that's a really powerful tool. But I would say
Yeah.
today, I mean, they've got this voice assist product, which is basically AI call answering. And I really think the world's going that way. There are contexts where you need a human being to talk to people, but it's getting good. And so again, no missed calls,
It's amazing.
qualifying calls. It can, and also their thing too that it does, it will score it. So, you can, based on sentiment analysis from the call transcript, it can say, hey, this is, just use the PI context. Like, this is a wrongful death case. Like, you need to immediately get on the phone with these people right now.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's extremely valuable from a marketing perspective.
That's super cool. So what makes you AttorneySync different from other agencies out there?
Yeah, so we run on the entrepreneur operating system, so they have this thing called the three uniques, which is basically your three key differentiators. And so I would say this: the first one is we do only month to month. Like, we don't do any long-term contracts. That makes us accountable for showing what we're doing, why we're doing it, what the value is to the firm every single month. If you're not happy, we're not trying to lock you in. And you'd be surprised, but like a lot of our worthy rivals, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year contracts, and no real accountability. I think the second thing for us is like we're very focused on business metrics. So, as I was alluding to before, a lot of legal marketing agencies will talk in marketing language. They'll say things like impressions and clicks and even calls themselves, like raw calls. doesn't tell you anything. Like you need to know things like what's your target cost per case, total number of actually signed retainers, qualified consultations, and you need to feed that information, that business data back into the machine so that you can actually manage your media to those types of customers. So like, if you know it's a qualified consultation, or you know this is a client, you can go tell Google and these other platforms you're buying media from, like, hey, this was qualified. Go find more of these types of
Interesting.
signals to buy
Okay.
media. So that's the second thing. And then we offer market exclusivity. Some of our clients will waive it, but a lot of our competitors will work with like 30 law firms in the same area. And I've just always, maybe it's like my lawyer mindset. Like you
Mhm.
can't, it's a conflict of interest. You can't represent the plaintiff and the defendant.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. That's yeah.
And so I would say those are kind of the big three.
And
But
that's geographical. Like if you have a PI firm, like in some small town in like outskirts of Detroit, you won't take on another one, or is that how it works?
yeah, we kind of navigate it on a case by case.
Okay.
Some firms want like we'll say like, look, this is your HQ, and maybe they'll want a city, maybe they'll want a county. Um, some firms want states, but I'm like, if you're going to lock us out of a state, like there's obviously going to be a price point to that.
Sure. Yeah.
But it varies from place to place, and and some firms will say, like I said, many firms will also just be like, we don't really care. I'll be honest with you, that's been a surprise to me because it's so intuitive to me. But like I said, a lot of our competitors don't do it. And a lot of lawyers that we've talked to said they really don't care.
Yeah. Wow. That's
So
great.
maybe I'm on the wrong differentiator.
No, I mean, I think that's a good offering though. It's kind of a confidence type thing. Do you think it's like stressful to be like, okay, like I have to give this person like a pinpoint of like every detail, every case, like we have to, we actually have to point this back to a dollar, like that type of thing. I know firms do that. Like I know law firms want to know, and like you said, they'll move on to the next one. But like, I mean, that shows you obviously have a lot of faith in your product. So, but isn't that like super stressful to be able to show all that stuff? I guess all those.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I was having a conversation. So I'll zoom out for a second. So there's this idea called, what you're alluding to, is called attribution. So like, what gets credit for the case? What gets credit for the qualified lead? And for a long time, marketers convinced businesses of all types, but lawyers in particular, of this idea of last touch or last click attribution. So what that means is that when a client comes in, whatever the last channel that client touches gets credit for it. So let me give you an example, and it'll be obvious
Okay.
to you why this is a problem. So I get referred a lawyer's name. I go search online. The lawyer's was running a Google ad. I click on the ad and I call, and I hired the lawyer. Well, the marketing agency that was running that Google ad campaign, they're going to say, hey, look, we generated this call for you. But wait, no, you didn't. It was referred by somebody else, a former client or a colleague or whatever. And so, well, I call that attribution myopia. And so anyway, we was having a conversation with a lawyer about this today online. The pendulum has kind of swung back the other way. Now lawyers are like, we can't make heads or tails out of this attribution stuff. It's not 100% accurate. And there are limitations to it, but my point is like I don't have to be 100% right. I need to directionally be able to show you that your marketing investments are paying off for you. And so we do what's called dual source attribution. It's a combination of the quantitative analytics data, so people actually the clicks that are going on behind through analytics and Google Search Console. We marry that data with the self-reported lead data. So when someone ask somebody how they heard about it, and they say a referral, so that would go in the referral bucket. But we would show the picture of like, look, ultimately you can decide business-wise how you want to bucket your leads and your cases, but we're going to show you the different channels that contribute to those. And by the way, some legal services consumers, if they don't know a lawyer and they're not comfortable getting a referral. You can think of plenty of situations where people don't want to ask their friends for like, a divorce lawyer or a
Right.
DUI lawyer or something. If it's search, click, call, hire, we can show you that journey. It's very quantifiable. You can do return on ad spend. And when you do that enough over time, you get a pretty good sense of kind of where the lines are. Like, you can there's things you can do to tweak it and optimize campaigns and improve landing page experience and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, you get a good sense of like, hey, this is kind of where you are today. based on our experience, we believe we can improve it to look like this. And so, I tell people all the time, I'm like, when we create a forecast and we hit the forecast, everybody's like, you're the best thing since sliced bread. But predicting the future is hard. And sometimes like we create a forecast and we can't hit that exact forecast. But ultimately, if we're showing a return on investment, if we're showing leading signals that we're moving in the right, leading indicators that we're moving in the right direction, the lawyers will get it. But to your point, like, yeah, it's not a exact one for one, especially when you start thinking about things like brand. So if you're doing offline like billboard buys or radio buys or brand social media buys, the only way you're going to hear that show up in your attribution data is if someone's like, yeah, I see all your billboards, I watch your radio creative. Like, it's not a direct response performance play. And so I'm always like, look, let's look at the individual channel performance, but also let's look at a blended mix and say, hey, based on all the money and time you're spending on marketing, are you generating a larger return? Are you growing your firm?
Okay.
And so you got to look at the data a couple different ways.
Interesting. Wow. That's a lot, Gyi. That's awesome though, man. Wow.
You asked.
I did. No, that was great explanation. What do you think most lawyers are doing wrong right now when it comes to digital marketing and tracking their leads?
I think there's two big things. The first is, I mean, and look, I'm empathetic because it is a jungle out there. Every day I see an ad for double your law firm's revenue. But the first one I'll say is like, lawyers are chasing these shiny objects. I mean, look, many practice areas in many locations, it is super competitive. I mean, we got more lawyers per capita than any country in the world.
Right.
There's a lot of consolidation going on because of alternative business structures. You're going to start to see venture capital and private equity money coming in to fund, especially in the plaintiff space. But law firms are consolidating, and so you're seeing national players emerge across, and so it's competitive. And so lawyers get desperate and they want to try this stuff. But they're chasing these shiny objects and they're chasing these tactics that, maybe they'll work for a second, but they're not really sustainable. They're not long term. And then the second thing is that, and again, I'm empathetic because I think that marketing people have trained people to think like this, but like everybody is on direct response. Like everybody is thinking about performance marketing. Everybody is fishing in the same watering hole, and very few firms are actually doing what marketing people would call demand creation or brand building. And so I'd say you got to have a mix. And you can't silo your activities. Like that's the other thing too. Like lawyers will get like so hyper focused on one channel, but like marketing investments should be like portfolio strategy, just like you would do in real life investing. Like you got to diversify your marketing activities. And so those are the big mistakes that we see over and over again.
That's interesting. I like that analogy. Let's talk about CallRail a little bit. Like, how did AttorneySync begin working with CallRail, and like, why did you feel that CallRail was the right fit for your clients?
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, my brother came from he was at big agency world, like some Publicis agencies, like big holding company agencies, and so like, call tracking in marketing writ large is like table stakes. And there's some big players like Invoca. There's a couple other call tracking metrics. But they're like enterprise solutions, super expensive, very powerful, but super expensive. And CallRail was really trying to bring, at least my view of it, they were trying to bring call tracking to the SMB, small business category. And so the pricing was much more accessible. And they had this key feature, which is this idea of dynamic number insertion that basically what it does is it cycles different phone numbers based on the sessions that are coming in. So back to that idea that you can actually track, like, oh, you came from Facebook and you called, or we can use a call tracking number in Google Business Profile. But it was really because they were one of the few players that was servicing call tracking for the small business community.
Yeah. So what's the importance of intake? I mean, I have had podcasts with like a lot of people, attorneys talking about intake. It's so important. People coming up with designs about how to preserve the calls and what they should do. And so we know CallRail is a player in there. So like how important is it for you? And tell me a little bit about that.
Intake is everything. I mean, I tell firms when we do exploratory calls for new clients, that's like the first thing we talk about is like, what's your intake process? Because, and we learned this early on, we'd be making the phone ring and the lawyers would be like, we're not getting any cases. And then we'd start listening to call transcripts and be like, you missed 20% of you didn't even answer the phone 20% of the time.
Wow.
And when you did, and sometimes when you did answer it, you sucked. You were like law firm, like no empathy. I mean, again, people are calling you with like some of the worst things that's ever happened to them. And you're just like law firm, like deadpan.
Right.
And every industry report, CallRail's got a report on this. Most of the major practice management tools that study this stuff, like every law firm, we're still horrible at this. We're horrible at intake. We're horrible at follow up. Lawyers don't want to, it's like sales 101 that you have to chase. And lawyers hate it. They're like, I don't, people want to get a hold of me. They'll leave me a voice message. And so anyway, the classic story is lawyers will say to marketing agencies or even their internal marketing people, they'll say, we're not generating enough leads. And it's like, you got plenty of leads, man. You're not working them. Like you're
Right.
not actually answering the phone. You're not nurturing the lead. You're not showing empathy. Like you're not, and the other thing too, the internet has totally democratized access to lawyers. So if someone calls you and you're a jerk, guess what? They got 10 other lawyers to call that in 5 minutes.
That's right. That's right. They all populate on Google. You're not the only game in town, so they're gonna be dialing. It's just like anything, any service you're looking for, they're just gonna keep dialing, right? So, how does CallRail help you show clients exactly which marketing channels are producing results?
So yeah, they will give you, so you can actually, so so let's take a slight different thing. So in an ideal state, you're using CallRail on top of a client relationship management system, and I will disclose that I'm a investor and advisor to a tool called Lawmatics. That's a CRM basically for lawyers. And so in an ideal situation, you got CallRail. CallRail will say, okay, this call came from this Facebook ad. It goes into Lawmatics. You work the prospective client in Lawmatics. You qualify that it's a lead, and eventually it matriculates into a fee for you. And now because of that combination between CallRail and your CRM data, I can run a report that says, show me how much money we spent on Facebook to generate phone calls and what did that turn into in fees for us. And so now you can do return on ad spend or return on investment analysis. And CallRail plays a big role in that in the phone, text, and message context.
And you were saying earlier you could just tell like the system to go find you like leads like that. Sorry if I'm simplifying it. Really,
no, that's it. That's right.
I'm learning a lot, Gyi. So sorry if I'm simplifying that sort of thing.
No, you got it. So what happens is that and you can do this with CallRail or you can do it. I like the CRM because the CRM takes it a step further, but you can do it just with CallRail too. If you mark a lead qualified in CallRail, CallRail has an API, so basically it connects with Google. It has an integration with Google Ads.
Okay.
And CallRail can tell the Google Ads platform, hey, this phone call that came in, the CallRail will do the sentiment analysis, and you can tag it and be like, look for certain words that will trigger like lead qualification, score it. And you can tell Google, hey, this lead that came in, this phone call that came in, this is what we're looking for. Go, and now it's all because it's largely AI based now. The AI will be like, all right, now we're going to change the configuration of the campaign to go find more prospects that match that pattern. So all AI is really doing is just big pattern recognition tool. And so what it's doing is it's like, okay, you told us this was a good signal. We're going to go find the other patterns that match that. And when you start doing that over and over again, it starts getting better and training on your data. And it starts to say, oh, it's becoming very obvious, like where we should be showing our ads, what messaging is working the best,
Wow.
what landing pages are working. Yeah, it's amazing.
That's awesome. So what other key insights do you get? I know you just explained some of them, but I love that. Like you're able to track through CallRail, like where those ads are coming, like where your potential clients are coming from and the leads. And are there any other key insights that AttorneySync has gained by leveraging the CallRail data?
Yeah, I mean the other thing is you find where your problem areas are in intake because it runs a sentiment analysis and it can be like, it'll be like these calls, the callers are all pissed off, here's why, and you can go and identify like, so it helps you manage intake specialists, especially if you have an intake team, whether it's internal or you're outsourcing to virtual receptionists, you can like basically score your intake team and be like, these are your A players, these are your B players. You can coach them and manage them, figure out why intake's going poorly. You can see if they're not following up. Um, you can do it can also you can adjust your workflow on the sales process. So like I was saying earlier, um, based on that initial phone call, you might be like, this call needs to be live transferred to an attorney immediately because we want to get this case signed up. Or it might trigger a workflow that says, hey, we still need to gather more information, and so we're going to put them in a nurture workflow. We're going to collect and do more research and get some medical records or something. But all that stuff can be done automatically.
Okay. Okay. So for a smaller law firm, like how do like somebody just starting out, how does CallRail help them streamline their intake process and avoid like missing new clients, potential new clients?
Yeah, I mean the first thing. I mean, if you use their sorry, CallRail, I'm blanking on the name of the tool that they just released a new tool. Oh, I think it's called Voice Assist. So Voice Assist is basically an AI receptionist. So you tell CallRail can scrape your website for all of your data. You can also input your business profile. You can enter frequently asked questions. You can talk about fee agreements, whatever information you want the machine to answer, and the machine will field your calls. Now, again, I always say the devil's in the details with how you implement these things because it can also go very badly if you're not, setting it up right, and also giving people. I always say give people the option to connect with a human or to opt out of the, AI technology. But you think about that, you have a very cost-effective, 24/7, never sleeps answering service. That's not just like leave a voice message. It's like it can answer questions. It can fill out scheduling forms so you can get meetings on the calendar. It can do a lot of things, and some of the times, depending on how you configure it, you can actually include like scheduling stuff. So you can, people asking like, "Hey, when's my deposition?" or blah blah blah. I can help you navigate that. So anyway, it basically serves as a virtual receptionist, as an AI receptionist. And so from a small lawyer that's just starting out, that doesn't have the funds to hire a full-time receptionist and isn't sold on the virtual receptionist option, it can be a great option for answering the phone.
Wow. And then you could sort of grow with it, because it has all these other
Yeah.
things that you can do. So, how does AttorneySync integrate CallRail into clients' existing systems?
Yeah, I
And
mean, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Yep.
I was just gonna say we tell everybody like get on CallRail. I mean, if you're not, this is how these conversations go. I'm like, our team's like, hey, are you using a call tracking system? No, we're not. Okay. If you're not using a call tracking system, we're going to be flying blind. We have no idea where the calls are coming from. We don't know which, calls are qualified. We don't know if you're answering the calls. So that's a pretty easy conversation. So I would say, off the top of my head, I would say 90% of our clients are using CallRail, or if they come to us with a call tracking technology, like, we'll probably even suggest that they check out CallRail because it's usually more cost effective. But let's just assume that they usually don't have anything. So we'll deploy CallRail on their website and their Google Business Profile forms, and then so for us, what we like to do is, and we try to be platform agnostic. So whatever practice management tool you use, CRM tool you use, we will work with your existing
Hmm.
data. But in an ideal situation, we'll export all the data into BigQuery, and then we use Power BI to visualize the reporting dashboard. But basically, AttorneySync uses CallRail to help our clients understand where their marketing investments are working, where there's opportunities for improvement in their intake, and the lead scoring and all that kind of stuff to better inform their media buys.
And it's more than intake too. It's more than just taking the call. I mean, it's tracking. I just want to like repeat that about CallRail. Okay, so
It's tracking and it's sentiment analysis. When I say that, it can like, and people might be familiar with this in the context of like because Zoom has an AI that does some sentiment analysis on meetings. Some people use Otter AI. We use Fireflies for our meetings,
yep.
but basically the AI can tell you like what's going well and what's going poorly in the conversations, and so it really helps you improve your intake, improve your the client experience or the potential client experience on the front end, so that you can convert more clients more efficiently from lead to client.
Yeah, so let's move over to AI for a few minutes. So AI is like a huge topic, obviously, in the legal industry right now. How do you see AI transforming how law firms are going to manage leads and client intakes? I know it's starting to happen already. There's a lot of items out there in systems.
Yeah, I think in the marketing context, the obvious place, especially as it relates to CallRail and intake in general, is that it can score the conversation. So it can basically the AI can say, "Hey, you should have asked this question," or the potential clients are asking this question a lot, so you better have answers for this. It can obviously do the sentiment analysis, but really is a broader sense, like I was saying earlier. Like what it's really good at is pattern recognition, and it identifies patterns in data even that human beings aren't good at identifying. So we use it all the time and to analyze marketing data, and it will find patterns that even our best analysts won't find. And so I think in the marketing context, it's the ability to like essentially have a conversation with your firm's data, to be able to talk about like, hey, you can upload call transcripts, whether you're using CallRail or using some other, you can use ChatGPT for this, but and again, there's all sorts of privacy and rules of professional conduct and anonymizing and all that kind of stuff that we're not going to get into right now. But there's ways to configure it so that you can protect that stuff. But let's just assume you've solved those issues. You can put in 100 calls and say, what are the biggest objections that people have when they call the law firm? Like, why don't people hire us? And it will tell you. And it's pretty darn good.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So what's your take on lawyers' hesitation to adopt AI? And how do you think they can, like, what's the first step for a lawyer to start sort of experimenting with an AI system?
I would just go play with ChatGPT. I mean, it's funny. So, I've been doing this for a long time, and I remember when there used to be this big fight in legal about cloud software and on-premises software. Everybody's like, I would never put my documents up into the cloud. It's not safe and blah, blah, blah. And they were super resistant to it. And
Yep.
I remember every single legal tech company fought these fights. I had the privilege of getting to know the leaders at Avo, the leaders at Clio, a lot of the legal tech companies, Matt Spiegel at Lawmatics, and they fought this fight for years. Lawyers were like, we will not put our data in the cloud. And of course, we think about that now and we laugh because like every system's cloud. You know what? AI, it's been the complete opposite. Lawyers are one of the fastest adopters of AI. And I think a lot of it is that they
Interesting.
see
Yeah.
like they're like, holy moly, we can actually this automates a lot of our work. And I think there's, and this has been a big conversation, especially for lawyers that are listening that are on the billable hour, and they're going to roll their eyes. I know it because they people have been talking about the death of the billable hour forever. But when you actually see what the AI can do when you have it configured to deploy it on your firm data, and it takes hours of legal research, it takes hours of legal drafting, it takes hours of legal writing, and reduces it to minutes and seconds, you're like, wow, this is a true game changer. I mean, in the plaintiff space, there's a bunch of players for med chronologies and for all sorts of other aspects to demand generation letters. And so anyway, it's like been the opposite. Like lawyers are super adopters of AI. And I tell lawyers all the time, I'm like, if you're a billable lawyer and you're like, I'm not going to do this AI thing, the market is going to end around you because the clients they're like, They're like, how can it be that you're charging me several $1,000s to do this thing, and this lawyer down the street is doing it for a fraction of the cost? How can it be that you're charging me thousands of dollars to do this thing, and I can go to ChatGPT? And you know what? Like maybe there's some risks with ChatGPT, but I feel like I'm getting a pretty good result. And by the way, we're only 2 years into this thing. Think about 3 years out, 5 years out, 10 years out. It's this thing is learning exponentially. Not to mention that the players in legal, like Thomson Reuters and Clio with VLEX, like they're training their AIs just on cases and firm data. And so these AIs are going to be really, really good. So I would say if you plan on practicing law over the next 10 years, like if you're not getting ready to retire in the next 2 to 3 years, you better hop on the AI train as fast as you possibly can.
You just have to shepherdize your AI cases, right?
Totally. Totally.
Well,
that's the thing that's
you
crazy.
You have to go law review and look at the cites on them or the citation.
They're using the large corpus of lawyer shepherdized cases to train the AI. They're using if you upload firm data into these tools, they're using it to train the models. And so it's funny, we joke around, but it's like the firms are training the machines on the technology that's going to put a lot of these firms out of business. And don't get me wrong, in the short term here, like I'm still very much in the camp of lawyers plus AI is better than lawyers alone, is better than AI alone. But when you see what it can do, like the amount of legal work, of the current type of legal work, because the Luddite fallacy people will say, oh, there's going to be all this new legal work that we're going to serve 70% of the latent legal market doesn't get served by lawyers anyway. And so there's going to be more access to justice and we're going to bring the cost of lawyering down. And that all sounds great to me. But I think about it and I'm like, I'm a family law lawyer in my local community, and there's only so many people here, and there's only so many people getting divorced, and divorce is what I do. And what used to take me hours to do doesn't. Like, you better come up with flat fee billing or subscription billing or project billing or value-based pricing, because billing by the hour, like you're not going to be able to justify the hours.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if there's a lot more pro se attorneys too. I mean, just they could do their own research and get their own cases, find me a case on this, that sort of thing. And then, I mean, I think like for the PI, the plaintiff's lawyers, I think, just getting the demands out. I mean, we've had techs on our show that talk about that do all those things, but obviously they still get a percentage of what they recover. But I think the hourly is where it's going to get interesting, like spending hours, like putting together some sort of like a pleading or complaint or something like that. So I think you're exactly right with the come up with a flat rate type of thing.
Yeah, and in the contingency world and plaintiff lawyer world, what's going to happen is lawyers that used to handle 100 cases are going to be able to handle 500 cases because they're going to be largely supported by tech. And so these national players are going to spend tons of money on radio, billboard, and all this other media to scoop up more of the market share. And then, you don't need as many lawyers to work to work more cases. So you're going to reduce headcount, take on more cases, and that puts a lot of pressure on lawyers.
Super interesting. How do you like being a podcast host?
I love it. When I started, I was like, no one's going to listen to this thing. I kind of did it on a whim. And I'll tell you, it has been, I mean, we had a conference, people like wanted to come and talk about the topics we talk on the podcast. And it's been very positive from a business development standpoint for our companies. And I really enjoy it. I mean, I'm very lucky. Like my co-host, who's a friend and also a competitor, like we have a great time doing it. And I tell people all the time, like, we know we've had some lawyers that we talked to about doing it as well, and we're like, if you're a local law firm and you do like a local, like, cover your neighborhood, have other business leaders come in, do a podcast, maybe cover sports, man, it is a great way to be top of mind with folks.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think that's a tremendous idea, actually, to do that in your community. So is there anything we missed that you want to point out about CallRail or AttorneySync or anything in general? And by the way, we thank you for coming to Boston Connect. That was so cool to meet you in person. I get very fired up when I have an event and I get to meet somebody that I've just like seen for so long in the huge community that we call Instagram. Because I believe, Gyi, that it's like, it might be thousands of us, but everybody kind of knows who they are, each other are.
I totally agree. Thanks so much for hosting that in Boston. I had a great time. Actually, we had some mutual connections there too, so it was a
Cool.
really good time and really cool space.
Yeah, it was. That
What
was
was
our
the name of that
second.
space
So
again?
that was our second year there. It's called Cavo. It's
Yeah,
right
give it
downtown.
give it a shout. It's really cool.
Yeah, and hopefully we're gonna do Miami in February. That's what we usually do. We did it in January last year, but Miami's next, so we're looking forward.
Miami's nicer than Boston in February.
It is, yes, it is. So
No, I this has been great. I tell lawyers all the time. I'm like, look, you got to hold your marketing investments accountable. That's my main message. Diversify and hold your dollars and time accountable. And good luck out there. And if you desire to grow, the other thing that we still hear all the time is like, I just do good work and new business comes. And if that's true and you're hitting your growth objectives doing that, like good for you. But most of the time, without a supporting investment, like you're missing out on opportunity because people are fickle. Even your best referral sources, if you're not staying in touch with them, if you're not nurturing those relationships, they forget about you. They forget about who you are. They forget about what you do. And they forget to refer to you. So be intentional with your growth.
love it. Gyi Tsakalakis knows his stuff. Thank you so much, man, for being here. We'll be in touch. Stay right there. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in. Wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.